All right, we have something a little bit different today. I just got the new 10 T4 headphones, and we're going to compare them against some of these other in-ear monitors. Some of these are pretty old, but I thought it would be interesting to compare all of them together. So let's start with something cheap that you'd get at the store, like the Philips. And this is a set where I can't even tell them apart like this. The Philips. These are Philips. Okay, so these are your typical type of headphones you'd get for around, I don't know, $20, maybe cheaper if there's a sale, maybe more if they're trying to rip you off. These have really poor build quality, but are pretty typical of the muddled mids and extremely fuzzy bass that's been extended out and tries to make your head rattle, but the whole time the sound quality is kind of terrible. I mean, none of these are horrible, but it's hard to call these good. The build quality is horrible because of this. The button doesn't work quite right, so it's depressed down now, and I have it wrapped with metal to make it work. The reason you'd get something like these is if you lose a set of in-ear headphones, and we're going to talk about that too, losing in-ear headphones and why these are a bunch of cheap ones. I know everyone loses some. It took me forever to find. I still had these out of dark recesses of bags that I thought I'd never look in again. So these are your fairly standard headphones, and overall comfort-wise, build quality-wise, it's all below average, but something that's doable if you're going out on a walk or you need something that you can deal with until they break. Stepping up, we have the R6i's. You know what? Let's go with the older ones for. So these are probably these are the which ones are these? These are S4A. So these are the Android version of the S4s. I think I got these probably around 2012-ish. The thing about these, they're not very comfortable because they have this huge remote that's up near your neck. And the cables that they use make a lot of noise, at least to me, when you're wearing them. These are really placement sensitive with the way that the actual directed sound is. So it's hard to get these in place and sounding correct. But when you do, they actually sound pretty good. The bass is pretty pleasant on these compared to cheaper models that really make it fuzzy and bounce all over the place and muddy everything else up. They're not a bad headphone. I think these used to retail for around $79, and then you'd get them on sale at Fry's or other stores for around $30 or $40. Those were upgraded to the R6i's, which are kind of an updated version of that, I believe. These are much more comfortable. The build quality on these and the other ones are actually pretty good. These had some heavy use, and the cable that they use, while it does make noise, it does seem to be pretty durable. The microphone on these isn't great, but we're not talking about microphones, but assuming that's the intended purpose and making noise, the sound quality itself is really not that bad. They're pretty detailed and natural sounding for the price, especially compared to other options. And I don't regret getting these. And they used to be around the top of the price range that I would get for something that I was just going to lose or break anyway. If we go back a little further in time, I'd like to talk about, before we get to any of the 10s, talk about these Shures. These are the SE210s, and these must be from around 2008-ish or 2009, I believe. These are hyper placement sensitive, and the actual isolation in your ear makes a huge difference on how they sound. So if you get these wrong or use the fat foam pads that came with them, they're kind of terrible. but like this, out of this whole group, I still prefer the soundstage that these have. There's just something that has a nice, wide, extended quality about them. The downside of these is the cable is huge and feels awful. It's got this huge connector in the middle that unclips for some reason, and you could put a different cable on it. The whole thing is just pretty unwieldy to try to use outdoors, and it's short. It's just awkward. So I'm not a huge fan of the cables on these. I am a fan of the sound of these. Just everything else is pretty average. Okay, so let's move on to what got me interested in the T4s to begin with. These are the T2 Pros. Lots of opinions about these, but they are really bright. And the nice thing though, for recording audio, these are actually pretty nice because you can hear when the gain's up too high, and you'd really hear that. Now for normal listening, I could see that being really annoying to people that are treble sensitive, and otherwise they're pretty flat. They remind me of the Sennheiser HD280 studio headphones. They're not really that comfortable. I mean, they're decently comfortable, but nothing compared to the T4s. So yeah, I do like these, and I would use these for recording audio over the T4s, but I wouldn't use them or recommend them for listening to music. So let's go to something else. The last of the super cheap ones here. These are Sony EX14s. These usually come in a bunch of different colors. These have pads stolen off something else. Are they different sizes? They might be. So these have terrible build quality too. And if you look, you'll see the cable is actually separated there. They still work, but I do like the L connection on this. Anyway, these probably cost 10 cents to manufacture, and they get sold from $10 to $30 depending on where you get it or what the retailer is. I wouldn't recommend these unless you're in a pinch. These, out of all of them, have the most ridiculous bass. It's so aggressive. It sounds silly. It's really pretty awful. So let's move on finally to the T4s. These just came. I think they've sold a few 6,000, 5,000 of these now. These are probably the most comfortable in-ear headphones I've ever used. Now, I'd consider the sound quality good. I like the Shure soundstage better, but for pure enjoyment of listening, these are probably some of the best in-ear headphones I've heard, and I don't like to spend a lot on these, so that's not saying a whole lot. Some people complain about the cable. I think the cable is great. It's a little tiny bit sticky, but it really doesn't get in the way. It's about the perfect length. The connector's nice, basically like the T2 or the T2 Pro, and has a nice carrying case as well. So I am a big fan of these. For the price, I don't know. I mean, I guess they're I forget what the price is now, but I wouldn't really pay over $100 for them, especially since you're probably going to break them or lose them with them being in-ear headphones. And you wouldn't use any of these indoors. You're using them on planes or exercising or doing something outdoors. So it's really hard to go more expensive personally, because I know I'll lose them, break them, break a cable or something awful with them. So usually, here's the case for that. It's pleather, or maybe actual real leather. I don't know. When you spend over like $40-$50, they usually give you some kind of carrying case. The T2 Pros didn't have. I mean, it had a really nice presentation box, but not a carrying case. So in conclusion, I would recommend the T4s, especially if you get them for the right price. And I don't know what the price is now on the Indiegogo. They're nice. They sound great, and I don't know how durable they'll be. So if you're going to use it for heavy activity, I don't know if I'd recommend that yet, but for the price, they are sort of replaceable at this point compared to something else if you're spending hundreds of dollars on in-ear headphones.